And if the technology works and I've hit all the buttons right, we should be live.
I believe we are.
Hello, everybody in the chat. Welcome. As you can see, I am not alone today. I have a very special guest. And guys, I hope the audio is better because I have a new microphone.
Oh.
Technology.
Me too, but I'm not using it.
Well, I bought this new webcam. Ooh, and maybe I can ask you, what is a good webcam for showing these awesome things like we're going to show today? Like when you're doing a live sale or showing them on a live.
Well,
I would love to get your input.
You know, webcams to me have just been a problem. So I gave up and I actually have mine set up so that I can use my phone as the camera. And there's a way you can do that. You can hook it in with your computer, and it's like you have to have some sort of a program that is camera connectivity, and then you can use your phone as your webcam.
Right.
Which is just better for everybody. There's just no way around it. I haven't found a good webcam. I tried.
Yes.
Not my job.
You hush. Somebody came to the door looking for me. So this is the one I just bought. I didn't get a chance to get it hooked up yet, but I'm going to give it one more go because Peanut's here with me today. This one has a remote to like change the zoom and the stuff. So we're going to try it.
Oh, cool. Well, that actually sounds better. So you might actually have something there. I mean, I'm sure they're working on them. They've certainly had enough complaints.
Yes. But I'm always trying to up the game. So for everybody who doesn't know who this amazing person is next to me here is, this is George the Antique Nomad. And I have had the great experience of getting to go shopping with George, really just learning how, he looks at things, and it's taught me so much. And I always say, George, this is what I say about you. I said, you not only know what stuff is, you know why stuff is. And I think that is just like the greatest thing for me in watching your videos and watching what you do is you don't just say, yeah, this is you tell us why and how the company was formed. And you have so many great backstories on everything. So if you guys are not subscribed to George and you are you're interested in what things are worth in antiques, go subscribe to George. I think you have 2 channels now, right? You have your...
I do. I have a live channel, and then I have my regular channel. My regular channel is more video on demand and educational focus, and the live channel is a little more just for fun and sales and other events like that. So but maybe we'll do live appraisals someday, but we're doing them now because you got a bunch of cool stuff, I understand.
Yes.
I saw your video recently. You went to a swap meet.
Yeah. And so the backstory on that is this particular vendor, I know him well. He always buys really good abandoned storage lockers. He's got a great eye, and he brings out this fabulous stuff, and he really doesn't know what it is. He just knows it's pretty good. But he's always very, very good to me if I make a big pile. So I work very hard to make a big pile when I'm shopping from him. And all but a couple of these items came from that purchase. And then I had a couple things laying around my office that I'm like, this has been sitting here waiting for me to figure out what it is. So I should ask George. I say that a lot in my videos. When you guys hear me say, I need to ask George the Antique Nomad. Well, here he is. So,
well, tell me, how do you do? I'm curious how you do this. So you make a big bundle at a swap meet, and you've got a big pile. Do you pay a set amount? Do you pay per item? How do you figure out your cost of goods?
So I kind of have an idea where I want to be before I leave it up to them. And that's really important when you're going into negotiations. I've kind of like, okay, yeah, I would pay 10 for this, 5 for this, 10 for this. And I try to be on the conservative side to leave a little wiggle room for negotiations. In this particular instance, I was ready to pay $300, and he came back. I think he came back at $250. So I'm like,
great,
yay!
And you didn't ask him for another penny off, did you?
Oh no. Oh no.
Because it
No.
was a good deal already.
Yeah.
Take
And
a good
I
deal
think
when it's
that's
presented.
important. I think it's important if because you want to be able to come back to that source and have them feel good about doing the deal with you and you feel good about doing the deal with them. I have it on occasions he's come a little high on things and I've talked him down a little bit, or I'll look over and I'll add something to the pile that makes it make sense.
Yes, that's a great way of doing it. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that is the thing. I know that there's another appraiser out there who says you should negotiate on everything, even if you're getting a fantastic deal. And I just beg to differ, because I have messed myself up. I have had dealers, I'll say, well, would you do better on this? And then they look at it and realize they made a mistake and they say, oh, I can't sell it to you. And it goes under the table. If you are presented with a good deal and you're happy with that number, just be happy and go on with
Yes,
your life.
I
And
agree.
you're right, you do make relationships, because it's not always just, I went to a garage sale and they're never going to have a garage sale again. You
Yeah.
might be going to the same people. And if you treat your pickers well, they will treat you well, and you'll start to get first dibs on their best stuff.
Yes. Yes. I know I've heard others that go to him say, well, he doesn't give me that good of a deal. But as I have been buying stuff from him for a very long time, and big, he knows I'm a big player. I bought a $350 saddle and a $300 bird cage, so.
Well, when I went shopping with you, we were all very restrained. I spent 140, and you spent 1,400. So I understand what you're saying. We all have our levels.
For sure. But they were all great deals, so
Yeah.
I was good with
Oh,
that.
yeah. Well, and I saw that Tiffany from Thrifting Vegas is in there, and it's so nice to see, at least in the chat, see you again. And she did very well. I'm curious what she got for that big Sasha Brastoff enamel piece. I'll have to ask you.
Oh, I don't even know.
Anyhow.
Well, if she's in the chat, maybe she'll let us know.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you know, her space here at the Good Stuff Thrift Store is absolutely stunning. Like the stuff that she brings in, her eye for things is so incredible. And we're working on doing a little viewer appreciation day to coordinate getting all of us here at one time, so those who are in the area can come in, say hello, get a picture, negotiate a good deal, all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, she just said she kept it and it's on her wall. That actually makes me happier, because, all of us who are dealers, we get into this because resellers, because we love the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go through, sometimes you get something and it just says, no, I'm yours. You were meant to have me. And we're still collectors too. So that's very exciting.
And I got to tell you, I used to feel guilty for wanting to keep things, things that were like, it's worth $300 and I got it for $50. I used to feel really guilty about not turning and selling it. And I don't do that anymore. I'm like, you know what? I will enjoy this until some time that I'm ready to switch it up. And then I know that I can always go and get that money for it. But why shouldn't I have a nice thing that I.
Exactly. We get to have fun too. It's I mean, we love all our viewers, but we got to keep a few things for ourselves.
All right. So let me just where do I start? This piece, I was not able to find who done it. And I'm hoping maybe a little bit. It is a frosted purple with the applied handle. There is, let me not drop it. There is the pontil.
Okay.
And I know a lot of times the clue is in the shape of the handle and the top, but I really couldn't find anything like it.
Well, in this case, I think the clue is the way it's polished on the bottom. It does have age, but notice that it's a big scooped out polish rather than a pontil that you can see. And that's usually done by a big machine. So my guess is that is probably Scandinavian rather than American, which is what I thought at first. But I'm thinking it's a Scandinavian piece, because they did do some of that. We usually see that as an attribute of newer glass, but that does not look like a new piece. The satin finish and that color were really popular in the late 60s. So that's my guess as to the age and origin. It's a little bigger than I thought too. When you held it up, it's like 7 inches tall. Is that right? 6 inches?
Yeah, it's
I
pretty good
think-
size.
yeah,
Sort of
it's
a
not a
large
miniature.
creamer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a pretty piece. I would think Scandinavian. I can't say I know absolutely who the maker of that one was because I can rule out all the American companies looking at the bottom, but then there's a host of companies in Scandinavia who make glass like that. So my guess is one of those. I can't tell you exactly. I can tell you that I think that value-wise, uh, I would think $35 maybe would be a retail price because it's just such a great color and you don't see satin handles. It's almost always clear.
Right. Well, I put 20 to 25 on this. So
Great.
I
Yeah,
always try to be conservative when I'm, giving value. So I'm happy to hear you think it's worth probably a little bit
a
more.
little more. Well, and also, it's how you're selling, where you're selling. If you get things at a good deal and you're a reseller, you want to turn that thing. And it's
Yes.
okay to not go for full value on every piece because turning your money is really important, as you know,
Yeah.
running a store, because you've got to pay bills every month. So saying, "Ooh, I'm going to wait 10 months to sell that for $5 extra may not be in your best interest."
So true. And that's why, Whatnot is like been my favorite place to start doing this as opposed to like eBay auctions, which just aren't what they used to be. For auctions now, it's Whatnot. As long as I'm getting a decent price, making a good profit, I'm okay with it not selling for the full amount that somebody else can go out and then get for it. So that's working really well for me. But you got to buy it right to sell it that way.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't be paying 50 and 75 and 80 cents on the dollar if you need to be able to
Yes.
sell it for that price.
Well, here's another one that kind of stumped me. I'm leaning towards Tiffin on this, but all of the enameling is on the inside, which is an
Yes.
even, yeah, it's just showing through the clear here, but it's all on the inside. There's the pattern.
Okay. And yeah, it's got a nice basket pattern. And that is definitely with all those small flowers and on the black amethyst glass was really big in the late 20s. So you see a lot of other people who are making clear glass decorating with the black coloration. And that seems to all have been applied on the inside of the piece.
Mhm,
And I like the gilding. It seems to be in good shape. I
mhm.
don't know for certain that it is a Tiffin piece because the shape is a little different. And a lot of what they were doing
Okay.
in that time was solid black all the way through. Although Tiffin is not a
Mm,
bad guess because they did do a lot of things like that. I'm leaning towards what I honestly think it is a piece that was probably made by one American company and maybe decorated by a different American company because it's
ah,
not a blank or it's not a pattern that is a listed pattern in a book with that
mhm.
basket. So I think that's something that was done by a decorating company. And I'm I'm leaning towards, and again, here's something I need to tell you about appraisals. Appraisals are an opinion of value, and
Mhm.
sometimes we have to do more research to know for sure. I can tell you that it's around 1930. I can tell you that it does seem to be American. It might have been that Central Glass made the blank and sold it to
Okay.
another company. They did a lot. A lot of times, it's funny. Central Glass is one of these weird companies that morphed over the years and kind of like treasure craft. If something was in style, they did it. And then as soon as it went out of style, they didn't anymore. And so they lasted for a long, long time, but their stuff doesn't look like each other. So nobody thinks of them to collect them. So that'd
Right.
be where I would start for an attribution. But the decoration was probably done somewhere else in Ohio or Pennsylvania. Price wise, I really think it's all about the look with that piece. I don't believe it's European because it doesn't have the right edging. So I think we're looking at an American circa 1930 piece. I might price that as high as $50, I would say, because I think it's got a good look, and that's what people are buying.
I said 40 to 50. I'm looking at my little inventory sheet over here where I gave the values. I was peeking with the black light to see the age on the glass because a lot of people don't understand that EAPG will have a slight yellow tinge to it versus a more contemporary glass, and it does. So,
Yes, and there's also sometimes if it has a very sort of funny blue tone to it, that's antimony, and that'll glow under a black light, and that's something you don't see used in glass after the EAPG period. So
awesome.
yeah,
Okay, was one of the stunners of of the purchase here. And I wrongly called it, what did we call? I don't remember what we called this guy. I got corrected on it. Now I don't remember what he is.
Oh, it
It's
looks like
the,
Bacchus with
I think we
the
called him a centaur or something.
yeah, he's a centaur, and it's they're having a bacchanal, and you've got the wine, the grapes
Yes.
all over it, and that is really fun. Is that bisque? Is that porcelain?
It's like a Perrier-ware.
Like a Perrier-ware. That's what I
Yes.
thought. It looks like Perrier-ware, and Perrier-ware is usually something we associate with the late 1800s, 1860 to 1890. Oh yeah, definitely that unevenness on the bottom. That looks like a Perrier-ware piece, and it's. I think that is a nice old piece. I think you're looking at Victorian era on that.
Okay.
It's so interesting to me because you're in a place where nobody even lived there when this was made, and yet everybody brings their favorite stuff when they move to Las Vegas. So you get this amazing stuff from all over the place, which is really fun. It's a lot like here in Florida, we get that. The condition is good. I would think that this piece is most likely to be English. I'm sorry, again, I can't tell you exactly who the maker is. There aren't any marks or anything for us to go by. And I do notice that the detail in the grapes is really strong, and the detail in the faces is a little more deliberately obscured. And I think that's because they would make these in a mold, and after you made a bunch, the mold starts to wear, and so they get a little bit less crisp. And because of that, I doubt that it's going to be like a Wedgwood, who did make some of that sort of thing, because they usually, when the mold started to wear down a little bit, they would just throw it away. The other companies, they needed to stretch it out a little bit more because they didn't have the name recognition. So I'm thinking this might be a smaller company. Maybe Charles May is a possibility, Meigh. He did the apostle jugs with all the little arches and the apostles standing in each one, and he did a lot of finely sculpted ware. By the way, I noticed that somebody in the chat said that they like to follow me because they are also a personal property appraiser, and we do learn from each other. So if you or anyone in the chat
nice.
something that you're like, oh, I already did the deep dive on that, I know exactly who did that, put it in the chat, because we would definitely like to hear if you have an opinion that is different than ours or more complete. But my sense of it, I think this sort of stuff is starting to really take off again. People are liking neoclassical. I have seen more interest in Perrier the last couple of years than I've seen and actually porcelain in general. I'm noticing, I don't know if you're having this experience, but nice Victorian era porcelain, whether it's German or Austrian or French or English, does seem to be selling it hasn't gone up in price a lot for the last, probably 30 years. But now it's actually selling at the prices people have been asking for all these years instead of just sitting there. So I do think we have a new group of collectors interested. I would probably value that at $125.
I put 100 plus. Yeah.
I'd say 125 to 165. If we could find out more about a maker, it might attribute higher than that. But I think that's a pretty good general range for those.
Well, as long as we are on Perrier-ware, we'll just segue over to this piece here. Now, so something else too. There are pieces that I may not have otherwise picked up and looked closer at had it not been for seeing the quality of many items on that table. And that is also a good indicator that other things are of a better quality than you might think on first glance. So
that is such a good tip for people who are going to swap meets or sales auctions where there maybe isn't descriptions of stuff. Just exactly what she said. If you see a bunch of stuff of good quality and that you recognize, and then you see other pieces, you can kind of take a look at them and see if the quality seems to measure up, and the chances are good that you might get something good.
Yeah, so this was off on it was over with makeup and like other like just kitchenware and stuff. And I thought that has a very similar look to that picture. And then sure enough, I turn it over and it's got, where's my camera? It has
it has
English
a
registration.
registry mark. Oh, very good. And hold it right there if you would. Oh, good. Okay, that's actually pretty clear. So English registry marks are really, really interesting in that, see that triangle there? The top always says IV at the top, like the Roman numeral 4 in the circle. And then the diamond has little numbers or letters in these little corners at the top and the bottom and the sides of the diamond. And in one period of time between the 1840s and the 1860s, they meant certain things like day, date, year, all of that. And then in another time, they switched it up, and so they changed it. So could I see the back one more time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now I do have an attribution for this.
Okay.
It's
Well,
really not real defined on that mark, even looking at it in person.
yeah, but I see it. I see it. Okay. So what you have is this one is before the 1860s. This is the first half of the era when they use registry marks. So this one is in the 1840s to 60s. And actually, the way you're holding that, I can tell that top number. Okay, so looking at the top number, the right number, and the bottom number, that piece was made on March 25th, 1849.
Wow.
So that's how specific you can be. And then the other number tells what bundle the pieces were in, meaning, if they had a batch. And this was all done so that the English could keep track of what was being produced and sold and that sort of thing. So we know exactly the day it was born. That part's pretty cool. But what did you find as an attribution?
Mitten.
Yeah.
Mitten water lilies.
Yeah. And Mitten is a fantastic company. It's a wonderful company that made really good stuff. They're considered very high end. It's actually a really fantastic piece. It's an underplate. There would have been something that would have sat in that middle, probably similar like a compote, like the one that you showed. And oh, how neat. Yeah, that is a real find. And that's one of those things where the English didn't mark all of their stuff with a company name. So would you know that was Mitten?
Everybody was asking if that fits. It doesn't really fit.
It doesn't. And notice the colors are a little different because Parian can be shaded from a really pure white. Parian ware was to look like marble. It was to take bisque porcelain and make it look like marble. Yeah, it was supposed to make it seem like a better material than it was. Okay. There was a lot of foolery in that period. Like, let's take something basic and make it seem better than it is. So they would sometimes shade it more to an ivory tone like Mitten did because that was a little warmer and that seemed a little more luxurious. So that was the thing. Mitten made the Queen's Beast set that I have. That's a pretty amazing thing. And that was in the 1950s, but that one's 100 years older. And I would say just for the liner, it will absolutely sell as the piece by itself. Someone will have the other piece to go with it. I would say that there's a good chance, again, over 100, because Mitten is a high-end maker. I think you might see 150 on that piece would be off the top of my head. So
very nice.
Did you actually find any values since you did distribution, or have you looked?
The interesting thing is, because a lot of people have listed it as just like a porcelain water lilies plate,
right,
without the attribution, it's brought the values down a little bit. But this is also something that I've always taught too, is ignore those, because if you have the maker, if you have any kind of provenance, you've got more value in your piece. So ask more. Absolutely.
And so what were the ones who knew what it was going for?
Around the $50 mark. I mean, the one, 50 was about the base.
For
and
the
then it went up from there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think over 100 is a pretty safe bet. And
I might just like hold on. I mean, that's the kind of thing, like telling my kids what it is, and it's like, by the time you're my age, that thing's going to be 200 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, that thing is 100. I mean, it's close now. What is it? 170? That's impressive. Or 160 something. Yeah. It's just neat to me that things like this have survived. Oh, this is interesting.
It is interesting. And I could not find, I could find similar. I found one, but they didn't know what it was. They didn't call it anything. But I thought the Greek key was quite interesting. And then the floral. So I'm leaning towards kind of it being like an Art Nouveau, kind of a transitional maybe piece.
Let's see the back.
It just says Italy.
Oh, how interesting. Okay. So this is done in Italy, and that ink stamp from Italy is probably a little later than Art Nouveau, probably looking at right after World War II. Yeah,
Okay.
would be my guess with that kind of an ink stamp. What's interesting to me about it is it's such an Asian motif. I mean, well, it's a combination of a lot of things, but you have the Greek key border, you have the very strong Asian pattern, which looks like a Chinese medallion, but the flowers are almost more Japanese looking. So because again, like Westerners do, we borrow lots of motifs from different things and we throw them all together in a pile, and then we decide that it all looks good together. And it really does. I think it's a nice looking piece. I don't know that we will ever know which company in Italy made that. Because it was done after the war, there may be factory records somewhere. A lot of stuff that was made before the war in Italy and Austria and Germany and all of those places, the factories were blown to bits. The information may be lost to history unless somebody comes up with a catalog. And a lot of different companies use that Italy ink stamp. So my feeling about that, though, is that it's mainly a decorative value anyway. It's not something someone's going to collect who's into hardcore Asian antiquities because it's not from Asia. But it definitely has the look. And I would probably, as a decorative piece, put about $50 on it if it were mine.
Awesome. All right. I have a piece that I brought out of a collection of stuff that I've had for a very long time. And I got this from an antique mall that was going out of business. And I got it maybe 10 years ago. And it's got a pretty high price on it, you would think, for an antique mall, $70. They had it as 1869 to 1917. And it's an RS Germany piece.
Oh, okay.
And then I will show you the mark. So you can get a little focus going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is RS Germany, but look at the mark above. It's, I believe that's Rudolf Schlegelmilch, Tillowitz. And the Schlegelmilchs, if you know what RS Prussia is, notice how the RS Germany mark looks just like an RS Prussia mark, except one color. Well, the Schlegelmilch family, Roland, I think, was the father who started it off. He started his factory, and this was back when Germany was a bunch of feudal states and kingdoms and not really united as a country. And then it started to unite under the Prussian Empire. And so that's why you see RS Prussia, because those pieces were from his factory back in the 1870s, 80s. Well, then when modern Germany came together, then they have to change the marks. So he set up factories for his sons. One of them was in Tillowitz, and for a while, Tillowitz was still its own little place. So you'll see pieces marked RS Tillowitz. Then later on, and that's why they're still emphasizing Tillowitz, because they want to know which of the brothers' factories it came from. Then later on, they start the RS Germany mark around 1900 or so. And that definitely has an Art Nouveau feel for it. So they gave it a very broad range, but really we can narrow it down to sometime probably 1895 to 1905 would be the date on that.
Okay.
And they're good quality. Now, RS Prussia, along with the rest of the porcelain market, really got hammered by reproductions in the 90s. RS Prussia bowls used to sell for a few $100s each, and some up to several hundred or over 1,000, depending on the patterns. The Tillowitz and the other companies that were related never sold for as much, but they sold, and then everything got wiped out because people got scared. Well, the good thing is, as time's gone on, the reproductions are terrible. And if you do just a little study, you will never be fooled. They never reproduced RS Germany. I think it's pretty likable. I don't know that I would think it would go for $70, but it could easily go for 40 or 50, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. I love it. It's so unique. You know, most of these types of bowls have florals and pretty common type motifs. And I love just the different look of this. And it's blue.
Exactly. Well, and someone out there said he thought it would be 150 to 200. So, you know, I tend to be conservative too. If somebody loves it enough for it to be 150, then step forward and it's yours, because it's a nice piece.
So now again, this is a piece that if it were at Goodwill, I probably wouldn't pay a whole lot not knowing too much about it. But the fact that it was, again, with all of these really fine antiques, and I know there are some food dogs that can go for really good money, I went ahead and put him in the pile, and I think he's a pretty quality piece. Now, his texture underneath is interesting. I don't know if that's coming through. It's got almost a little bit of like like little dots, like he was stamped.
Yeah, he's well made, and that does have a bearing on them. The sculpting and the quality of the mold is really good. The thing that's interesting about him is he's that bright yellow color, and
Yellow,
yeah,
yes.
that bright yellow color tells us that he is not dynastic era, because in the dynasty eras, that yellow color was imperial yellow, and only the imperial family was allowed to have pieces that had that color in it. And if anyone else got a hold of them, they would be executed. And the person who took the secret of the formula and sold it to them would be executed. The royal family was very, very, very insistent that that was only for them. So because it's the imperial yellow in such a big form, that lets us know that we're probably looking at something right around early nationalism, maybe around 1910 or 20. And it's a neat looking piece. The color is just so, they tend to be very strong anyway. You'll see them in teal colors. You'll see them in all sorts of bright colors. I've seen them in a really brilliant bright blue before. So I think he's fun. The Foo dogs or Foo lions were supposed to guard the temples, and at the temples they would actually have one on each side when you were walking up into the temple, because that was to keep away people who weren't supposed to be in the temple. And he's certainly ferocious looking, so I get it. I would say, you know, because we're not talking antiquity, we're looking again more of a decorative value. I still think that, and it's very specific to taste. I'm sure the people out there looking at this either really love this piece or really don't, and that's okay. But the people who really love this piece, I imagine that it would go for low three figures. You know, again, probably 100 plus. I wouldn't go wildly high over that in all likelihood, but I think it's a nice looking piece.
Yep, I think I put 80 to 100 on.
Yeah, see, you know a lot of stuff.
All right. Let's switch gears to a little piece of jewelry here. Now, I'm used to buying fetish jewelry that's got the little tiny carved animals on it.
Yes.
And these are quite large, and they are stone.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see fish. I see some Asian looking designs, and that actually all looks like Asian hardstone. So I actually think these pieces were, whereas a fetish that you're thinking of would be a
Native American.
American, yeah. And also those red ties at the top. This is something I would say was probably made in China. And probably in the mid to later 20th century, because that's when we start seeing more things coming from there. I think it's really well done. And where jewelry is concerned, it's as much about the look as anything else. And for the person who likes this look, I can imagine somebody who would wear this would probably be someone who wears a lot of high neck and sweaters, so that a big piece of jewelry would hang well and be visible against that background. This is one of those things, if you actually thought about the time it takes to carve those pieces and put it together, it should be a lot more valuable than it is. I think a lot of jewelry is, when you take it's kind of like a car. You buy a car for one price, but if you had to buy all the parts to make a car, it would be twice as much. That's how jewelry is too. So I would feel comfortable, if it were mine, probably pricing it around $75 to $95 would be my thought.
I put 40 to 50. So
yeah, well, I think you might be able to push it a little bit. If you can take 40 to 50, that's a definite sell.
All right. Excellent. Okay, this is another piece. I did not get this from this purchase. This has been sitting in my office waiting for a Ask George moment. So we have our Ask George moment. Now, I do think there's pieces missing on it. It probably did something else once upon a time, but it is really old. It's a cast metal, but the detail is so extreme on it.
Oh, yes. Interesting. Oh, okay.
Something kind of broke off the top. And then it's just got a bolt on the bottom.
Okay. Yes. Well, what you have there is a nice piece of spelter. And spelter is a mix of zinc and tin and lead and all sorts of soft metals that's easy to mold. And the point of it is, and it's kind of heavy, isn't it?
It's heavy.
Yeah, the reason you have that little hole in the top, there may have been a little finial or a knob in there that's missing, but that was basically to cover up the rod that holds all of that together, because they'll put a big metal rod through it so that they can tighten all the screws and join everything together, because that's several different parts all put together. And that was very popular to do in the 1890s, because they were looking for, bronzes were very expensive and popular, and bronze is it's a very hard metal and difficult to work with, but they figured that they could do the same sorts of sculpture cast in, they do a master mold just like any sculptor would, and then they could do the softer metals, and it was easy to pour into a mold and cast, and then they would finish it with a finish so that it would have that patina to kind of look like bronze. And that was very popular in that period of time. Originally, like I said, there would have been probably a little knob in that font, or maybe even a little piece that stood up like a handle so you could carry it around. But I think that it's intact enough and probably can be tightened enough that someone would like it just the way it is. I didn't see any mark on the bottom. Did it have any sort of anything? They usually don't, because they're old enough not to. Okay. I think you're probably, I would like to see that price 100 to 100 and a quarter would be where I would like to see it price, if you can get it to screw together and be just a little more solid.
I was thinking somebody could even turn this into a lamp. Pretty easy.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. A lamp, a font, all sorts of things.
Two hands. All right.
Yes. Big and heavy.
Okay. I just picked this up at another yard sale I went to, where we bought so many cool things. This was like a last minute caught my eye purchase. And I'm thinking it's Chinese, not Japanese. Would that be correct?
Well, it looks Chinese rather than Japanese, but believe it or not, it is Japanese. The Japanese got, Japan shut itself off to the Western world successfully for a really long time. And then when they were forced to open to the West in the 1870s, well, they knew that the taste was for Chinese ceramics, so they started making things that looked a lot like Chinese ceramics at first, and then they developed their own stuff. But there still always was that push and pull between those cultures in terms of design, and they robbed from each other regularly. And so that one is 1930s. It is Japanese, even though it has a Chinese look to it. It's got that moriage beading on it. I think it's a cute lamp. You showed the plug. That tells us this is well, really, it's pretty. We see teapots that are done like this in the same period, and when you see those, you can look at the bottom and they say made in Japan on them. So I think you're looking at 1930s. It seems like the condition is good, and I would figure 65 to 75 for the person who liked the look. A lot of people collect elephants, and the trunk up is for good luck because it was the Depression and people were looking for good luck symbols. And so that's why you always see them with the trunk up in that period.
Yes. And Lanny K, thank you so much for the super chat over there. Yes, Rachel is now 16 and she is antsy to get her driver's permit now. I'm not ready for 2 children driving. I'm just not ready. But thank you so much.
All right. You'll need it for the insurance.
Well, I've told, see, this is the thing. No one knows he has to pay his own insurance. And I told her, you can get your license when you can pay for your insurance.
Good. That is cool.
I am not quite sure what it's made of. It does have a chalky, plastery kind of feel to it. So I'm leaning to, and it sounds like it too.
Yeah, it sounds like chalkware.
Okay. And it
Let's
does have
see the back. Okay, it's got a hangy hole impressed in it. And let's see the bottom if we could. Thank you. Okay, so this is a chalkware piece or a light ceramic bisque again. Bisque is just fired at a low temperature. It's a form of porcelain, but it's like the base form of porcelain because it's softer and you don't have to fire it as hard, and it's made of softer materials. Chalkware is kind of between there and ceramics, so you kind of have the continuum there. Because of that square hanging piece, I think that as neat looking as this is, I think it's not wildly old. Usually when I see those sorts of hanging attachments, I put in mind of around the 1980s when people start to hang things as wall decoration, like double columns and stuff. There was sort of a new interest in neoclassicism, just like we're starting to see now. So I think it's a timely time to have it. And, you know, I might price it around $40 to $50.
Okay. I'm super happy with that.
Okay, good.
And I hope everybody's listening, because all of these items are going to show up in a live sale soon.
Yes.
Oh, let's pull something
That's good to know.
small here. Oop, find the camera here.
These are fun. Let's see if it'll come in a little bit there.
Yeah. Definitely need to change the webcam, but
can you put your hand behind that? There we go. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see what this is. Okay, that's good. This looks to me, does it have any mark on the bottom? No. Okay. This looks to me like a small Greek scent bottle. There were, and I say that, oh yeah, there's a dauber or part of a dauber. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Does it smell like ouzo?
It's got smellies in it still.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a little perfume bottle, and this looks like it's hand painted. There was a lot of hand painted Greek ceramics that came into the marketplace in the late 60s, and I have had a whole slew of those. I had probably 15 or 20 of those little perfume bottles in one of my boudoir displays at one of my antique malls. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we see the motif a little better there. And I'll tell you, they actually do. I sold all of mine. They didn't go for tons of money, but I think I was somewhere between 15 and 25 a piece, and they all went. And I think they're cute. And actually, there's a lot of interesting Greek ceramics now that neoclassicism is starting to become a thing again. There are a lot of souvenir pieces from Greece from the late 60s that they did a lot of plates, and a lot of them were not just brought back as souvenirs, they were sold domestically here as well. And you will see those at right now really cheap prices. I mean, you'll see them at $10 to $15 a piece. I think they're poised to go up because the younger generation now really does like the classics, which surprises me, but they really do. My generation, we weren't taught the classics, and so it kind of washed over us. We just want modernism. But I'm noticing younger people they're interested in the neoclassic designs.
I'm glad that didn't smell awful, because
it's there now.
Selling that for a while now. Okay, this is an interesting piece of glass. Oh, it's marked. I just saw that it's marked.
Oh, does it have a mark? Okay.
Made in USA.
Oh, it says made in USA. Okay.
Atterbury?
No. Macbeth Evans actually is
okay.
And do you have a blacklight handy? I know we never talk about milk glass with the blacklight, but let's see, because this piece once in a while glows.
Look at that. Oh, wow.
This is a sleeper that most of the blacklight collectors do not know, because this company, and not every piece that looks like this will glow under a blacklight. But
I never guessed that.
A handful of them did, because Macbeth Evans, again, we're talking Depression era. You see sort of the swan. Swans were popular. Phoenix birds were popular. It's all sort of this idea of we're rising from the ashes. And because they were making this in that era, a lot of times, you know, they do a batch of green glass, which might have the uranium salt in it, and they'd pour it out. Well, they didn't necessarily go and wait for the kiln to dry and chip out every piece that had been there before. So sometimes the green would melt into the milk glass and you don't see it as green, but that means that you still got that glowy possibility. So when you see these, now this is not true of very many pieces of milk glass at all. In fact, this is the only one I know of, although I'm sure there's others, but this is the only one I know of that sometimes glows under a black light. So that's great that you found that, because I haven't found one to illustrate that before.
Would this have had a lid?
No, it looks like it should, but it's actually just supposed to have little handles like a planter. They were competing with Vogue and Acro Agate that made the marbles, and they all did little planters and favor vases and things like that. And so it was just part of the style. They really wanted a very involved design on this. But yeah, I'm so glad you brought this.
I love it.
I've been looking for one of those to show people that once in
okay.
a while, milk glass will glow. If your husband says it's okay, I'll marry you. But I think I know what the answer is, Kristen.
He's getting marriage proposals in the chat.
Oh, that's really neat. And does it say anything?
Love these.
Me too.
It does not.
Oh, I'm sorry. One Way Vintage wanted to know the value. We're appraising it. I didn't know the value on that piece. Okay, so if it was a regular one that didn't glow under a black light, the value is $15 to $20. But if it glows under a black light in a medium way, probably 25, maybe 30. If it glows really strongly, then 35 to 40.
Nice. All right. Yeah, no, there's just, it's made with little tiny flathead screws.
Oh, yes. Very good. And what's that hanger look like? Okay, yeah, that's original. All right. So this is something that somebody probably made themselves, believe it or not. It's based on Black Forest carving and die cuts, and generally it's somebody of German heritage or who learned it from somebody of German heritage because it has that look for it. I've had many of these all over the country. I find them. I don't know if there were patterns or plans that you could buy out of a book because I haven't seen any two that were exactly alike, but I've sure seen enough of these to make me think there probably was a pattern book that you could use. And so generally these are homemade. I don't know these to be factory production. Or at least it's very small batch where, you know, maybe they were making a handful to sell, but they weren't making like production line volumes of them. Usually they're broken and missing a piece or two or a lot. And this one seems to be completely intact.
And scratched, but
a little scratch, but that's nothing that you can't polish out. So that to me doesn't affect the value. 1930s and 40s is when I especially see these because it's a period of time when people had more time and would do home crafts and things like this. And so my thought is probably, I would say 40 to 45 for that size. I have a very complicated large one that I'm trying to sell for 75. It looks like a house. It has a roof over. I don't know why deer are in a house, but apparently the deer are broken into the house. And there they are. So that's my sense of that piece.
Hey, if I had deer, they'd be in the house. So
yeah, that's true. Yes, you spoil your animals.
Okay, here's a fun
one. Someone was asking where I am. I'm currently in Florida. I'm a little overtime in Florida this year. I've got some family things that I'm staying here for, but I am getting to some of my events. I will not be able to sell at the Custer Show in Spokane next weekend, though, so I'm sorry to you folks who usually see me there, but we'll try to get back there in the fall.
Yeah, speaking of critters, I just got to give a shameless plug here. The Niche Lady Critter Cam channel is up and running, and I just uploaded a new video over there this morning that is the trip that Rachel and I took over to the Sequest Aquarium, but there's no talking. We do that whole channel is just enjoying, relaxing, looking at animals. So hope you guys will go give that a peek-see. Now, before I show you what's inside, I just thought the box on this was fascinating. I bought this sight unseen because of the box.
Yes, and boxes alone do sell. Hat boxes definitely sell. And isn't it funny? Stetson is something that I equate with the West. So why are all these colonial buildings on it?
Looks like Pennsylvania.
That's because Stetson hats were made in Philadelphia. And the guy got the idea because he took a trip out west, realized how the sun was just relentless, and thought, I need to make a hat that is specifically designed for that. And then he went back to Philadelphia, where he was from, and started producing them. So there's their crest, which looks very, very official, like perhaps they're a nation of their own. But that's why you've got a Western hat. Yeah. Or is it a fedora? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, more of that. Oh, I like that. You wear hats better than I do. I put hats on in a lot of my videos because I know I don't look good in them, so it's fun. You can rock that hat.
Would this be called a fedora? Or
I think it's a fedora. It's not a bowler. I'm pretty sure that's a fedora. I've got to get better on my hat styles. I used to come into them more often. And yes, oh, Royal Stetson. Okay, so this was a little better quality, and the type of liner, I would say you're probably looking at late.
Whippet.
Oh yes, yeah, you're looking at 1960s on that hat then.
Okay.
And 1960s are about the time a lot of guys give up wearing hats. I mean, nowadays, guys' hats are baseball caps, but it used to be that every man had to have this sort of a hat. And it was partly for your protection in the inclement weather. It was also because people didn't have, oh, that's where it was sold in Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, people wore hats because the weather might be bad or it might be hot and sunny, but also because, we take for granted we have all these hair products and you just put them in the shower every day. Well, that wasn't how life necessarily was for a lot of people. You might be living in an old apartment in the East where you shared a bath with other people. You might be living in a place where, there's not a ton of money and hot water is a commodity. So you wear a hat to cover up your hair. And so a lot of people wore hats until the 60s. What really blew the hat industry was the bouffant. As soon as women started wearing bouffants, it was like, well, hats don't work anymore. And that was the end of that. This hat is nice. I think that the last time I sold one like that, I think I got $50 for it.
Okay. All right. I got to meet recently Katie of Vintage and Vinyl.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did too.
She can rock a hat. She can rock
a hat. Yes, she can. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I got to meet her this year at Mount Dora for the first time, and I'm really excited to make her acquaintance. She's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen Vintage and Vinyl, that's a fun channel too. She has some very specific niches, and she's really diving into costume jewelry and learning a lot about it, which I think is fun.
Yeah, and she's absolutely adorable. I mean, just who she is as a person. I just had so much fun hanging out with her.
Yeah, I got a really neat feeling from her too.
This is another item I've had for a very long time. It is a collection of all of these miniature perfumes in a little shadow box kind of display.
Oh, very good. Oh, that's interesting. So these are going to value, miniature perfume bottles are going to value depending on, first of all, is there fragrance in them? Believe it or not. I know some of those are empty and some of them have fragrance. So some people who are buying miniature perfume bottles are buying it because they are looking for a fragrance that is out of production. And even an old fragrance, if it still smells good, will sell for a premium, and they sell pretty readily online as long as you're able to say, yes, it doesn't smell like vinegar. So then they kind of vary depending on the fragrance. But I would say if it has fragrance in it, you're probably looking at $15 to $20 potentially each. Otherwise, you look at the ornateness of the bottle or who made it. So, for example, up by your right hand, the next notch up from where you're holding it, you have two Evening in Paris that I recognize there, and they are the cobalt blue bottles. Now, Evening in Paris is a scent that is, questionable to some people. I know that because my mom and her sisters bought it for their mother every birthday, every Christmas. And when she died, she had an entire drawer of it and had never worn it. And they said, Dad, we kept getting it for her. We didn't know she wasn't using it. And he said, well, she didn't really like the way it smelled, but she never had the heart to tell them.
Aww.
Bottles full are worth money because people love the bottles. So the bigger one is probably 15 to 20. The smaller one is probably 8 to 12. They did really elaborate full sets with bottles of them. Your other ones, like the ones with the metal fill, it's funny, I'm pointing like you can see me, what I'm pointing at. But there's one with metal filigree. The other thing that sells these is what does the bottle look like? And so basic ones could be $2 or $3, but if you've got metal filigree, they might be $5 or $7 or $9 each individually. Now, if you're going to sell the whole thing as a shadow box, this is one of these things where there's the question of collection effect. And what that means is it worth more as a collection together, or is it worth more split up? Well, I like it as a collection together because it fills the shadow box, and the shadow box is worth about $30 by itself.
Okay.
But I would say if you were worried about trying to maximize your money out of it, you would take the special bottles out, sell them differently, and put lesser bottles in and sell the shadow boxes.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And that's something to consider for those of you who are resellers. Sometimes when you look at something, you may look at it in terms of the pieces rather than the item as a whole. If
Right.
it makes sense to take apart, sometimes that's the thing to do. Just because it's in a collection, if you made that collection, then it should never be broken apart. But if someone else made it, it's not sacrosanct.
Right. Okay, I've got one more fun item. This hour went really fast, George. This is so fun.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Okay, so can anybody guess what's in the case? I think, I don't know if this was here when you came and visited, but
I don't remember it. No, I don't know. It could be several things. It could be medical. It could be an instrument, like a scientific instrument. It could be a travel case for somebody to take along. But I think I see what it actually is. Ooh. Oh, this is fun. So how many of you folks in the audience recognize what this device is? It is a Sultan Deluxe Special. This is a violet ray machine. Are you familiar with this piece, Danny?
No, but I do have something that has helped me, and it's got the original owner's manual here.
Yes.
And the ways to use this.
And they've got some doozies.
Many of which we cannot read on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to put those things, especially when you find out what they do. So do you have
right. 1939.
Oh, that's great. That's actually later for these, although they do still make something like this, believe it or not. Now, this is generally considered to be amongst the category known as medical quackery, meaning, oh, it's a snake oil sale, or it's something that they said would do wonderful things that it really doesn't. In this case, the violet ray machines actually do something for your skin, and they actually do use things like this for certain types of skin burns or acne. Are you brave enough to plug it in?
No.
Darn. Okay, I wish I had it here because
the electricity in this building. Yeah, that would be.
I can understand that. So if you'll show them the piece, take out one of those implements and show them the piece, if you would, please. The thing that it goes in, if you can get just whatever's the easiest for you.
Which one will come out? They're pretty snug in here.
Needs a safe word. Well, depending how you're using it. Okay, very good. Yeah. Oh, there's an interesting one. Now, can you get the bottom piece, the black part, the handle? Okay. So what you would do, and you can do it gently, you don't have to go all the way. Exactly. Oh, this one fits nice. Sometimes they're really snug. So what you would do is you would turn this on. You plug it into an electrical outlet. It will turn violet because that's the ray. It's a gas. And then when you put it near your skin,
I wouldn't be able to plug it in anyway. It's a European plug.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're in luck because no, what it does when you plug it in, and there are American versions, you can go get one and try it. It won't really hurt you in any serious way, but you wave it over your skin and it throws sparks, and you will see it spark, and you will feel little electrical sparks shocking you as it goes along. And this was to stimulate the skin. And as you saw with that brochure, they promised it would do all sorts of amazing.
Oh my goodness, the things that it will cure. Mm-hmm.
Yes. All sorts of things. And that's why there's all those different tubes and all those different directions. The thing is that medical quackery sells well. And we usually just see basic ones with 1 or 2 tubes. You've got the super deluxe with a whole lot of stuff. And the prices have really run up when you have the whole kit like that. You're probably looking at around $300 if you were to sell on eBay. $250 to $300. It used to be they sold for half that, but people are fascinated with them. And because they have found some legitimate new use in medicine, there is a demand for them.
Oh, it's supposed to fix gray hair.
Oh.
Maybe I will try to plug it in.
Why does gray hair need to be fixed?
That's true. That's true. It does not.
In my beard.
We'll embrace it. We'll embrace it. But awesome. Yeah, I thought you would like that piece.
Oh, I really do. That's fun.
So I want to remind people again where they can come find you and get help with their own items, because that is what you do. You appraise items and and you're also a reseller of many cool things. So give us the whole spiel of where people can find you.
Oh, thank you so much. Boy, this has been fun, and it really did go fast. So I'll have a premiere video every Monday and Wednesday. So tonight at 8 Eastern, after your stuff is done, well, come on over and check me out at theantiquenomad.com. I also have a live channel and a shorts channel. I also do a lot of real world stuff. My next appraisal fair that I know I will be doing is in New Harmony, Indiana, and I believe that's the second weekend of June. I'm hoping to do one in Michigan as well. It's going to depend. I have a little bit of scheduling issue right now because I've got family obligations and that has to come first. But those are things I know that I'll be doing. And I also generally am doing antique shows. I'm hoping to be at Springfield, Ohio in May. And so catch me somewhere around the way in the real world, or you can reach out to me if you want appraisal help. Go to theantiquenomad.com and there's an appraisal tab, and it's easy. You can just fill it out from there.
And I highly, highly recommend, because one of the things in this business is not just knowing what something is, but being able to help somebody who's looking at it with interest that may not know what it is. It gives value if you can give some history and some of that, like what you heard today, that just kind of makes the interest level in an item go up so much. And Tiffany made a good point too, point out the fact that they can go purchase your treasure craft book over on your website too, right?
Thank you. That's very kind. And I'm glad she enjoyed it. And yes, I just got a new shipment, so I should be able to get them out right away. The last time I was on your channel about, I don't know, last year sometime, and you mentioned it and I ran out of them. So I ordered them. And so we're in good shape now.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on a Monday afternoon. I hope you have a spectacular week. I'm hoping now that most people have gotten their taxes done and they know whether they're getting a refund or not, we'll get back into the buying mood and sales will pick up all over the place, because I've been hearing a lot of chatter about slow sales, and it's always around tax time.
It's always around tax time. And the other thing is, if you are in a part of the country where the weather has been bad and it's suddenly nice, people are outdoors, they're doing their gardening, they're doing their spring cleaning. It's all understandable. I remember when I first was running antique malls, we always knew that 1 month of the 3 months of spring would be slower than the other two. And it just depended on when the sun came out. And it's okay, because then everyone will get used to it. And then we'll have all our outdoor shows and festivals and fairs and online sales, and life will go on. So don't get so hung up on what happens 1 week, 1 month, 1 day. It all works out in the long run.
Yeah, this business is a roller coaster. It truly is. You just hang on for the ride and add up your numbers at the end of the year. All right, everybody. With that, go be profitable and make it fun.
Oh, I got the wrong one.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.